Hi, in this video, we are going to find out about the quadratic formula. And let's recall what we just did. We just learned how to solve a quadratic. So we solved a quadratic by completing the square. That was the technique that we used, completing the square. And the reason for doing this is by when you complete the square, now any quadratic can be solved. Any, oops, let's just read that again. Now any quadratic can be solved. And the quadratic formula says if you don't want to complete the square every time, well, you can just complete the square once and it'll give you the formula that then works that you can just use to plug in numbers however you want. So let's remember the general form of a quadratic and we'll solve that. So let me rewrite that. So we're going to solve the general form of a quadratic. And the result is called the quadratic formula. Let's take a look at how to do this. The general form of a quadratic is ax squared plus, let's write it this way. Solve ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 for x. Here we go. The first thing we did is, remember, we want to complete the square on the x pieces. This is what we complete the square on. So, complete square here. Actually, before we even do that, well, no, that'll work. So what we want to do is we want to move the c to the other side. So minus c. So when I bring this all down, I have ax squared plus bx. I'm going to leave a space because we're going to use that, equals negative c. Now remember, we said that we want a to be 1, so let's divide every single term by a. So I'm going to just use the line that I've got, and I'll just show this additional step in red. So I divide the first term by a, the second term by a, and the right-hand side, all of those by a. And now the result is x squared plus b over a times x equals negative c over a. Then now, if you recall, put this piece in here. What we needed to do is we needed to figure out what goes there, because if we can figure out the right piece to put there and on the other side, then we've found a perfect square. And we did that by taking 1/2 of the term in front of the x. We call it, above we call it the b term, and now that is b divided by a. So this gives b over 2a. And we're going to use that in our next step. But for right now, in order to fill in the blanks, we need that value squared. So we take b, we divide it by 2a, and we square it. So here we go. This gives x squared plus b over a, x plus b squared over 4a squared equals negative c over a plus b squared over 4a. Okay, now on the right-hand side, this is a perfect square. And we know that we can write it, I'm getting ahead of myself, I'm sorry. I was excited here. We can write it using this. So now this becomes x plus b over 2a squared equals, and then on the right-hand side, I'm going to just write this. Notice that, we'll do it this way. Negative c over a plus b squared over 4a. And what we want here is we need a common denominator. So we need, I'm going to write it just as the LCD, a lowest common denominator, and it looks like it's going to be 4a. So this is going to give me, this first fraction, negative c over a, is going to need a 4. So let's do that. Okay, so now let's write this again. I have x plus b over 2a squared equals, let's see, now this is going to become a minus 4c over 4a plus b squared over 4a. Okay, now we can take this, let's combine our fractions. So this is going to be x plus b over 2a squared equals, oh, that's where I made a mistake. I knew something was wrong. And what was wrong was I forgot my squared right up here. Boy, you shouldn't let me do that. So let's fix that. We need an a squared. So then this, let's see, I'll do this in red so you can see my corrections. Yes, this is the difficulty with being human, is I need another a there, and this should be an a squared. There we go. Okay, now, goodness gracious. Here we are, back on track. You can see that the details are of utmost important. So let's get back. On the right-hand side, I'm going to write the positive part first. We'll write it as b squared minus 4, and we'll just put the CA, we'll put it in alphabetical order of A times C, since in multiplication the order does not matter. And then I have divided by 4A squared. There we go. Now we can take the square root of both sides. And I've been rewriting it all, but a lot of times you may very simply just add a step by taking the square root like this and just adding it in. And I'll do it in another color to show that we're moving on to the next step. Okay, this leaves me with x plus b over 2a equal to plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. Okay, now we're going to do two things. One is we're going to subtract b over 2a from both sides. And we're going to simplify our radical a bit, because notice that here 4a squared is a perfect square. So we'll simplify that. So on the left-hand side, I've done it. I've found out what x is. X is negative b over 2a plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So you can leave it in two parts like this, or oftentimes you'll see people write it as x equals negative b, because notice I have a common denominator, plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac, all of that divided by 2a. And that is what we call the quadratic formula. I hope that helps the understanding of where it comes from, and for you to realize that you actually have the tools and ability to derive it yourself. Thanks for watching.